Hi, and welcome to a Sunny Book Nook. My name is Sunny, and I'm bringing to you part 2 of my hyped books that I believe deserve the hype and that I do adore video, because I made part 1 over here, but I wanted to make it just one video, got cut short, and so here we are. And incidentally, that list of books I mentioned in that video was more magical realism, historical fiction, fantasy vibes, and these that I have here are more romance, literary, contemporary coded. Let's just get into my recommendations of hyped books you have definitely heard of before and that you have definitely been recommended before, that I am also giving the stamp of approval of my recommendation. The first book I want to talk about is actually a YA historical novel that is a romance, and that is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo, which you have definitely heard of before if you are anywhere near in the realms of like LGBTQ books and whatever. It is a very beautiful love story about a Chinese femme and this white butch set in San Francisco in the mid-20th century during the height of the Red Scare, and it's so beautiful. The Telegraph Club is a lesbian bar that these two high school girls sneak out to go to, essentially. And the atmosphere was so like immaculate, and our main character's relationship to her family and the tight-knit close community that she has with Chinatown and the Chinese American community that she is totally surrounded by is obviously like interrupted or informed by her identity as a lesbian that she is discovering throughout the course of this story. It's a very sweet young adult historical novel that is such a love letter to butch lesbians and femme lesbians, and like as a dyke, like I love this. I think it was such a sweet story. Me and my podcast co-host on our lesbian podcast talk about this book in one of our episodes, I think, and I'll link that in the cards. But yeah, I think this is so sweet, and I love the two characters under the street lamp right there. This is very adorable. I don't think the writing is anything too special, but I also don't think that's like the point of this type of book. It's, you know, a YA historical romance, and the focus of the story is this romance and how it is existing despite the homophobic realities of their time and the specific community and anti-communist and racist like issues that our main character has to face in the midst of the socio-political environment that she finds herself in, as well as the like queer legacy and history of San Francisco, of the setting of the book. I really enjoyed this, and I would definitely recommend it to you if that sounds up your alley at all. Another hyped lesbian romance that I think is good and worth reading is Yerba Buena by Nina LaCour, which I've talked about so much on this channel already, but it's basically a story of like star-crossed lovers, these two women who come from very different backgrounds but very difficult backgrounds, and they don't even meet until halfway through the book. So if that's something you don't fuck with, then, you know, it's more literary than like romance, although the romance is so deeply informed by the thorough and in-depth characterization that we get of our main characters and all of the like traumas and family histories that they've experienced and endured, and the communities they come from and how they've been shaped by them, and then how they become lovers as the course of their lives unfold. And it was such a beautifully written story. I think Nina LaCour has historically written a lot of YA, so, you know, I think this foray into adult fiction, like as a debut into the adult contemporary genre, was pretty successful, and I would definitely recommend this. I think it's been getting a fair amount of hype, definitely not as much hype as some of the other books I'm going to be talking about in this video or some of the other authors, but I would recommend this if that sounds like something you would enjoy. A contemporary novel that's been getting hype for going on like 5 years now at this point that I actually really adore is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This is such a sweet book. We are following our main character, who is quite neurotic and mentally ill and very judgmental and stuck in her own mind and lonely, Eleanor Oliphant. And she ends up finding herself in various situations and relationships that she's never previously had to experience, while also dealing with the trauma of her childhood and her past and her relationship with her mother. And so she basically, at the beginning of the book, decides or finds out that she really likes this one guy and develops a parasocial relationship with him via like Instagram. And then she also helps save this old man who like passes out in the middle of the street. And then she and her coworker start like becoming friends or something. And so basically we just get the slice of life type of story of Eleanor Oliphant as she becomes more and more like well adjusted, but like all of the roadblocks that come along with it, like all of the ways that she is still fundamentally very awkward and anxious and not really neurotypical. Like she doesn't really know or abide by the social rules, and I think being in her mind for that is something that I find very endearing and relatable at some moments. It's just such a sweet novel that is ultimately about finding love and community despite trauma and your own predispositions to loneliness and anxiety and bitterness, not being able to overcome the overwhelming love and joy that is available to you as a human being. It's just such a funny and heartwarming novel, and I was definitely like laughing out loud reading this, and also the emotional peak of this novel makes me cry. I've revisited this book, and particularly the audiobook, a couple times because it's so lovely to me. I just find it so endearing, and I totally understand why so many people love it, because it's just it's a very sweet book. So I would definitely recommend this if you haven't read it already, because I did really enjoy it. The next author I want to talk about is someone you have definitely heard of, and that is Sally Rooney. I love Sally Rooney so much. Sally Rooney's writing is just something about it will always get me, you know? Sally Rooney is an Irish millennial woman writer who just, her stories of love and friendship following these sort of disillusioned young women who are kind of just like critical and bitter and skeptical, but are also, you know, finding themselves in and out of weird family and social and romantic relationships, and these are just slice of life stories that follow those characters as they attempt to navigate the world around them and what they find themselves involved in. You know, I really enjoy the way that she examines the individual in the social world, I guess, and the very particular way she goes about it in being a woman, an Irish person, and a Marxist. It very much shows in all of her writing that those are the perspectives that she's like really bringing to the table, you know, and how she's informing the writing of her characters and their backgrounds and their trauma and how they view themselves and how they behave and interact with the world, I guess. And I've heard a lot of criticisms of Sally Rooney over the years, like, and I get, like, people think that she's, like, overhyped and they don't, like her books or whatever, but I will always be a Sally Rooney-ator. I will always be a Sally Rooney-ator. I like every single one of her books more than the last one. The amount of love that I had for Normal People, and I had read it before it was getting a lot of hype, just saying. And I was like, wow, that's a good ass novel. And then I noticed, like, when romance readers read it, they were like, oh, I don't really fuck with this. And I was like, okay, well, you're a romance reader. Like, this is first and foremost, Sally Rooney writes, like, literature, like, literary fiction, you know? And if what you like is genre fiction romance, then I don't think the love story of these two normal people are going to really work for you. Just genre-wise, character-wise, that's just not, it's not compatible, really, I don't think. I read this so long ago, I feel like 3 years ago, that I don't even remember exactly how and why I love it. But I do know that I love it a lot. But Beautiful World, Where Are You? I have read and reread quite recently, and actually we did a podcast episode again on the Sally Rooney verse. The observations that she makes in Beautiful World, Where Are You through the mouthpieces of her characters were so fascinating, as well as the relationship dynamics that play out in this book, because we get more perspectives than we get in this one. We get 2 and then 3 and then 4 different perspectives from different characters that she constructs in this one. And in this one we get 2 alternating perspectives, Marianne and Connell. And in her first book, which I don't own a physical copy of because I really want a hardcover, and obviously I read it after I read Normal People, and it was published years before Normal People, so the hardcover wasn't really in print anywhere. Anyways, but Conversations with Friends is a book that is entirely from our main character Frances' perspective, from what I remember. So I think it's been so interesting to see Sally Rooney's writing progress throughout the years, and with every book that she writes. It's not a deal breaker for me if someone I doesn't like Sally Rooney's writing, but it does make me like them a little less. A lot less, sometimes. I just think that her writing, when loved for the right reasons, is so precious to me. And nearly all of the criticisms I've heard of her and her writing just sound very ridiculous to me. Actually, me and the podcast co-host in question that I keep on name dropping essentially did a video a year ago of us reacting to negative reviews of our favorite books, and of course Sally Rooney was included in there. You can watch that video if you want, but we respond to some of the criticism that we see and how we think they're ridiculous. But anyways, yeah, I really like her, and I know that it's a popular opinion now that she's overhyped, because when it's a popular opinion that someone is good and hyped, then it becomes a popular opinion to reject that. But we get into this problem of there are sometimes some pieces of media are really popular because they are really good. And then sometimes there are pieces of media that are really popular because I don't know. I think that is what explains, Colleen Hoover and, Marvel. Is, Anyways. The next book I want to talk about as being hyped, but not overhyped, is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. I think that this book explores the concept of, motherhood, and of course, trans feminine identity, and the aftermath of being a trans woman, and obviously detransitioning, and also being a trans woman in a relationship with another trans woman, and what's that like, and communities of trans women in a way that is very, very interesting and well written. It's very much a literary novel, and it brings forth to the literary scene a lot of discourse and identity and community in a way that isn't packaged for a cis gaze, I guess, which is very refreshing, and I think is the point of literary fiction, and subverting the nature of identity politics, or liberalism's assigning of moral worth to victimization, which Sally Rooney fucking talks about in her books. But anyways, Detransition Baby was a great portrait of these two people's lives, and then how a third person getting involved in a pregnancy getting involved complicates everything. And I think the alternating timelines of the pasts of our two main characters and the presents of our two main characters, with the alternating perspectives of the characters, was very seamless. It didn't really feel like whiplash of getting between these different perspectives until it did, and that was a very powerful moment towards the end of the book. And I think like we get to see the phases and the progression of like mental distress that comes with the idea of like embodying, or like the impending future of like embodying motherhood, or like what it means to like navigate the world as a mother, or in like a non-traditional like family structure, or you know, as a woman. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I would definitely recommend it if you haven't read it already. It's worth picking up because it deserves the hype that it's gotten. Speaking of non-traditional motherhood, the next book I want to talk about is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and specifically the book. This book has gotten enough hype for it to be adapted into a TV show, obviously, but the book is where it's at, you know? Like, it's just such a good omniscient portrait, like an overview look of this suburb, of different families and their lives intersecting. A single black mom and her child working for the large white affluent family, the shady history and dealings and interpersonal drama involving romantic relationships and friendships and pregnancies and adoption and surrogacy and all of this stuff that's just like, wow, you really packed all of that shit in here, didn't you, Celeste? Like, that was quite brilliant, I think, to unfold this multi-family, like, saga, drama in the span of, like, one, like, neighborhood, and the total, like, evisceration of white liberalism and, like, white womanhood and how it operates, and the specific magnification of motherhood as an experience, and an intimate one, and family as an intimate experience, and the ways that it becomes severed or disrupted. And it's just, it's quite brilliant, and I understand why it was so beloved that it became adapted into a TV show, but I think that just means that you guys need to read the fucking book. I mean, fucking same for normal people, because, like, everyone's seen the show adaptations for these, but, like, you guys need to read the fucking books. Like, I know some people say that they like the show adaptation for normal people better than the book, or they prefer that, but that's just because you don't understand the brilliance of Sally Rooney. But anyways, with Little Fires Everywhere, I just genuinely think that the book is written in this, like, very subtle way that the TV show, because of the nature of TV as, like, a medium, can't really do. So I definitely would recommend it. Next, I have a memoir to recommend that also has to do with complicated family dynamics and queer themes, and that is Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. My copy is kind of beat the fuck up and annotated to all hell because this graphic novel is just pure fucking brilliance. The way that grief and trauma and loss, childhood, lesbian identity, coming of age is explored through the actual medium of comics, and how brilliant the comic layouts and all of the details, if you focus on each frame and each page and the layout, like, it's just brilliant. And you know, the references and the allusions to great literary works in here, like, it's just so fucking good. Like, this book is a masterpiece, and if you haven't read it already, you just need to read it because it's such an engrossing memoir and read, but it's also so cerebral and impressive as, like, a literary work and as a piece of visual art. It's so compelling on every front. The storytelling is absolutely brilliant. The interweaving nature of the narrator and, like, the present voice and the reflections on the past, which is the nature of, like, memoir, makes this book brilliant. like so fucking brilliant, and I just think that this book is hyped and has won awards and been adapted into a Broadway musical for a fucking reason, and people need to read this book. And finally, the last author I want to shout out here is Ottessa Moshfegh. Of course. I fucking love this bitch. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but she is just a genius. She's brilliant. And her mind, just like her fucking mind, you know? I'm happy to say that I own all of her books except Death in Her Hands, mostly because I think Death in Her Hands is my least favorite of hers, which is funny because it's the favorite of hers of so many others, but I put her books in order of my not least favorite, but like not as favorite to most favorite. And like, not to be fucking basic, but My Year of Rest and Relaxation will forever be one of my favorite books of all time. Like, it's so good. Ottessa Moshfegh is the blueprint for writing extremely disgusting, unlikable, lonely, hateful, hate-filled female main characters and putting us in the minds of them while also making them so fucking sympathetic. Of course, she is not the first author to do this, of course, in like the history of literature and feminist literary legacy, but these books will always have such a special place in my heart because of that connecting theme of like the crazy bullshit that crazy bitches get up to, and the way that Moshfegh is able to write that and convey that in a way that's like a total evisceration of the contemporary, but also not. Like, she writes in every like era, the unique and terrible human experience of living in utter shit while feeling like utter shit. I really love her writing, and everyone and their mom now says that she's fucking overhyped. But no, I don't think she's overhyped. I think that she is getting the love that is kind of hashtag deserved. Like, if you've written this many good books, I'm sorry, like, I think you're allowed to be, like, a little problematic, you know? And I think, like, there are fair criticisms of her, like the Andrea Longchu article I liked. I understand why people might not buy into the hype of it all, but the thing is that I stand by the hype. In fact, I think I have been at the forefront of the hype because I think I read My Year of in like 2019 or something. When was this book published? Yeah, 2018. So like I feel like I was semi-early on the My Year of Rest and Relaxation like train that everyone now has since hopped on. But like I love this book. I think it's fucking hilarious. I think it's brilliant. It is just satire at the highest degree, just a total hilarious and sad and sickening romp that is really fucking fun. I don't know. Like, I think Ottessa Moshfegh is able to create some sick, deranged, delusional, evil, unwell characters in worlds that she constructs that are like very, very artificial and scammy and weird and gross and not right, but like still make them so compelling and interesting and, again, like a fun romp, even if it's not fun or a romp, because it's utter terrible shit, horrendous shit going on. That's actually all I have for you today, and I hope that this list of hyped books that I think do deserve the hype helps you understand my reading taste a bit better and get some recommendations for books that you might have been like on the fence about, or authors that you know are very universally praised, but you know, my opinion has been put on the table. But anyways, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and all the links to my social media and my Patreon and everything else is in the description. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video if you subscribe. Okay, bye.